Association of Flight Instructors. I'd like to welcome you to this edition of the NAFI 10 Question Challenge, the online video series where we ask 10 questions to successful instructors and figure out what their trade secrets are, figure out how they achieved personal and professional success. Today, my guest is Meg Godlewski. Now, Meg was a broadcast journalist, and she eventually turned into an aviation journalist and author. She spent 15 years at General Aviation News, is a current columnist for Aviation for Women magazine. She created her own company called Fly Right LLC. She's the chief technical writer for M0A ground schools. She's a CFI, II, MEI, AGI, and IGI, an 8-time master flight instructor, a 5-time master ground instructor. She's got over 5,500 hours dual given, specializes in ground school and scenario-based training in AATDs, and has over 18 years of flight instruction experience, having earned her CFI in 2003. Meg, welcome.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you joining us today, and we'll just start with the first question. So was flight instruction part of your original career plan, or was it something you never anticipated doing?
Never anticipated doing. I was a broadcast journalist. I started working in college, working in radio, and then I took a television job because it paid the most of the jobs in the area for media and for broadcasting for me, because I wanted to fly. So I thought, well, all right, if I do the TV thing, which I didn't particularly care for because you have no privacy, doing your laundry and someone comes up to you and tells you they didn't like a story you did, and it's a little awkward. Then I finally got a job that was paid enough that I could finish my private pilot certificate. And I thought, I'm done with that. All right. And then I met the editor at the time of General Aviation News out at the airport. He was taking flying lessons. And I talked to him about writing a story, maybe a feature for General Aviation News. And he sort of put me off. Well, we've got plenty of stuff. We've got somebody who does that. All right. And I kind of forgot about it. Then a couple of years go by and General Aviation News is looking for a reporter. And he called out to the airport and said, well, was that girl reporter out there? Because I was working in television at the time. I'm wearing my TV station jacket because, it's got our logo on the whole bit. And the gentleman who answered the phone said, oh, yeah, she's right here, and hands me the phone because I was paying my bill because I'd been there doing proficiency or what have you. I do the interview. I get the job. I started there with 406 hours and a private pilot certificate. By the time I left, I was an MEI with 3,000 and some change hours.
That's incredible.
Yeah, then it was one of those things where becoming a flight instructor, I got tired of the flight instructors leaving. Flight instructing for most people is to build experience to go to another job. You'd come in for, let's say I'm doing my commercial certificate. That's actually where it hit home for me. And, oh, so-and-so's not here anymore. He got hired by such and such. So now you have to repeat everything because we're part 61 with this guy. And I said, all right, we're done here. I'm going to be the instructor that stays. And did it. And I found out I kind of like this. And I like the fact that I'm helping people make their dreams come true, because that's what flying is for, I'm going to say 90% of the population. Maybe you're doing it just because it's a bucket list thing, or because you want the job flying the big iron someday.
So did you, as a journalist and an author, were you documenting that experience, or was it just sort of for you?
I was documenting the experience. I would write about it frequently. I did this or that in the airplane, and it would be published in GA News. There's a column there. It was called Touch and Go. I'm not really fond of I didn't like writing touch and goes because it felt too personal to me. I'd rather write about other people because I think their stories, frankly, are more interesting. So I'd write about, oh, I did my stage check, or I got my dry check right, I passed this. And there was a gentleman at a Seattle area flight school who followed it regularly. And when I wrote about passing my check right for my CFI, he told the owner of the flight school, she's ready, let's get her. And he basically reached out to me and I ended up getting a job there.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. So reflecting on your instructor skill with your first student, how well do you think you did?
I think I verbal vomited. And I just think I just gave it to him with a fire hose. But I was fortunate that I had a lot of mentors, a lot of people around me. And I said, well, am I giving him too much? And it was a learning curve for me too. But he passed well. I had 2 private candidates who both got their check rights done on the same day. And I was very proud of both of them. And then the examiner sent me a text message, congratulations, it's twins. So I had been warned that I would probably verbal vomit at first. And I think it's one of those things you have to just learn to dial it back because it's going to be different for every learner you work with.
Hmm. So most of us have had a instructor mentor. You mentioned that you had some really good ones. Who
Mhm.
helped you learn the ropes, and what was the most meaningful things they told you?
All right. My first instructor, Dutch, taught me basically this is a love of flying. He was a retired law enforcement personnel. And when I first met him, I recognized that because of the way he walked, because he had the vertebrae separation they get from the duty belt. And the fact that I picked up on that impressed him. So that taught me, yes, it's good to notice these things.
Hmm.
I had some instructors who were very demanding. I had one who's an Air Force Academy graduate, taught me to fly instruments the Air Force way. And that's something that I still teach my learners. He went on to become a DPE, and he would just smile when my learners would give him information that I had learned from him. And he would tell everyone he raised Meg from a pup. Okay. Actually, I'm going to see him today. We're going to be doing some stuff today together. I've had some instructors who taught me to be gentle with myself and also my learners. I mean, flying is supposed to be fun.
Hmm.
And I had two particular ones, Greg Brown, who you probably know, Greg, who wrote The Savvy Flight Instructor, and Dorothy Schick. I saw them speak at Women in Aviation 2002, and I hung on every word because these were two people that were professional instructors. Because I'd heard, oh, yeah, you have to take a vow of poverty to be a flight instructor. No, you don't, not if you're good. And they taught me it's okay to pursue your dreams.
I love that quote. It really is a dream situation, and the misnomer for flight instructors, like you said, is that there's no way to be successful. And I guess some of it is how you measure successful. But like you said, if you're really, really good at it and you really put your effort into it, the sky's the limit.
And I also think that for me, the definition of success is being happy.
Hmm.
When I was in high school, we had the assignment, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so a lot of people are saying, I want to be a pilot, I want to be a doctor, whatever. And one of my best friends wrote, I want to be happy. And the teacher told her she didn't understand the assignment. And she looked at him and said, no, I don't think you understand life. Coming from a 15-year-old, I thought, wow, that is profound. I like that.
I mean, how many people get to make other people happy in the same way that we do?
Right. Flight instructors, we're helping people achieve something. It's like teaching someone to read, ride a bike, or swim. Everybody who learned how to do those things, it opened up the world. You probably remember when you learned how to swim. Suddenly summer was fantastic. Went to the pool every day, learning to ride a bike. Suddenly I can go to school by myself. I could ride my bike with my dad. So that I had that thing. Learning how to read. I learned to read early, and the Encyclopedia Britannica in the house. I went through the whole thing, A to Z. Now in kindergarten.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, I can learn about everything in these books. So flying is the same way. We're opening up the world to somebody.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, what's the most valuable non-aviation skill you've learned from being a flight instructor?
I think reading people and trying to, I guess I would say, understanding their perceptive, where they're coming from. And I'm going to use my mother's speak here because my mother was a therapist. So everything was, I know you're saying this, but I'm hearing this. So when, I couldn't go to McDonald's with her. You're saying fillet of fish. I'm hearing quarter pounder of cheese. But when I'm working with these folks, like, I know you're saying that you're freaked out about the radio. What I'm hearing here is you don't want to come across as silly on the radio. So let's work on that together. Or you are getting overwhelmed in the cockpit. So I'm picking up on that. All right. So now my job is to make this easier on you to let you have a break while we talk about what we need to do next. I need you to teach me how I can teach you. What works for you? And I think a lot of instructors are one size fits all, very cookie cutter, but you need to have that discussion with your learner. And even if it isn't verbal, you have to use trial and error to figure out what works for this person.
Hmm.
And I think that's helped me with other aspects, like as a journalist as well. You have to know how to reach them. And I always say, if you can't reach them, you can't teach them.
Hmm.
Meaning, if there's not a connection, it's just not going to work. So for some of my younger learners, I become kind of like the airport mom, and they call me airport mom. I have an airport mom who I'm still in touch with. One of them called me the drill sergeant and said, okay, fine, I'll take that one too. But the reason his parents put him with me is because they wanted him to get some discipline. They wanted him to have a direction before he went off to college, and he did just fine.
Hmm.
And I get very protective of some of my learners, and they get very protective of me. which I think has helped out a lot. And I've run into them in airports. I mean, some of them are the majors now, several are in the military, and they still remember me as the instructor who did this or that. And it's a good memory.
You had a positive effect on them. So what do you enjoy most about flight instruction?
I think what I enjoy most is when I see the light bulb go on for my learners when they've achieved something. And I like being that part of it. I help them do this. They do most of the work. They do 95% of the work. I'm just the facilitator. I give them the Lincoln logs, show them how to build the cabin, and they go from there. And when they solo or when they master that particular approach or when their radio calls are spot on, we celebrate. When they do a good landing, we celebrate.
So what's your most interesting, scary, or fun story you've had with a learner?
Well, the latest one, just recently, we were on downwind. We were doing a flight review, and we had a midair with a red-tailed hawk.
Oh.
And I looked up, and here's the hawk doing that. Oh no, I'm going to hit something, flapping thing. And before you could say what the insert expletive here, it hit us.
Oh
It
no.
caught us on the left side of the windscreen, and we felt it tumble over the airframe and hit the tail. The plane kind of shuddered. At that point, the learner tells me, "Your airplane." So I take the plane, no discernible damage. He does the radio calls, we land. The airport manager meets us because she hears it on the radio. And we think the hawk took the worst of it. There's a tiny little dent on the wing, a little bit of blood, a little bit of pin feathers. And then we had that conversation. Are they endangered? Am I going to date the inmate with the most cigarettes? Does anyone know? Uh, I found out the process. I knew that you had to report it because it's a migratory species, but I didn't know who. So I was educated that day, and it became a learning moment for both me and my learner. There's an entire form you fill out. We pulled up an aerial view of the airport, and I could say, all right, right here is where we hit the hawk. We were at pattern altitude. Is that normal for hawks to be at that altitude? Because that's what Fish and Game wants to know. Is this a normal place for the hawk to be? Is this a normal altitude? Was the hawk in migration? Whatever hawks do. Because we didn't see like it was having a courtship dance, but we knew from the body of the hawk. And I said, well, great. Now, do we have to notify next of kin? I'm not sure what happens next here, but it was a good moment because I got to learn something too. But then we talked about the time we collided with the hostile hawk.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I came too close to a bald eagle one time in a Cessna 150, and I'm pretty sure that bird was bigger than us. And so we would have been in a reverse situation. I think we would have taken more damage than him.
We have those up here too. I've had them fly formation with me on
Wow.
occasion. There was a particular airplane of a flight school I worked at, a little green and white 150, that every time someone flew it over a particular area, the hawks, or not hawks, the eagles would come up next to us. So we wondered if they thought we were one of them. I said, don't rock the wings. He's going to expect something from us now because that's
You've been intercepted.
pretty much.
So in your mind, what quality or skill makes for an exceptional instructor?
An exceptional instructor is one that listens to the learner. We will draw a line in the sand. We don't let the learner push us around, and we always get something out of a lesson, be it on the ground, in the simulator, in the air. The learner has to come home with some knowledge. Something has to be gained. The good instructors will make sure that happens. You have to know when to tighten up on the reins. You have to know when to give the learner some slack. You have to be able to recognize that this isn't working. And it's not about me getting my hours for whatever I want to do with it or me getting a paycheck. What is in the best interest of my learner? I think the best instructors will think about these things.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget how selfless being a flight instructor can be.
Well, if we do it right, and you have to be able to communicate. And I think that's probably going to be number one. I have flown with the instructors who don't say anything. They just sit there. And to the point where I wondered, is he dead? No, okay, he's breathing. All right. They don't talk. I said, if I'm paying this much for you to be in the airplane with me, is this osmosis? Am I supposed to be picking this up by telepathy? Because it's not working.
Right.
And then I've had other instructors who talk so much. I say, okay, I really need you to be quiet now so I can focus on the task at hand. And it's a learning game. You kind of figure out each other's quirks at that point.
No, I know you're still doing a lot of instruction, but what aspect of flight instruction best prepared you for what you do now, or made you a better instructor in the process?
Because I have so much experience as an instructor. I know how to explain things differently. There are like 5 different ways to explain something to a learner. And understanding how to take that and put it into these ground schools we write, because the ground schools are on video.
Hmm.
So, for example, this is what we want to do with the model, show them this with the model. When we were talking about lift being created by airflow over the wing, I had Jason, who's our front man, blow on a piece of paper, just like air going over the wing, and the piece of paper lifts up.
Hmm.
And I have used that for years. Well, the first time I did that, there was this gasp in the classroom, and you could just see all the lights going on. It's like, oh, that's how that works. Oh, okay. Because, well, how does the plane stay in the air? I don't know. I think it's magic. It's not magic, it's aerodynamics. And so if I can bring that in there, and things that I've done in ground schools when I've taught face to face, and we can put it on video, that works, or knowing when to go to animation, which is something I get from my television background, or this is what I want to be filmed in the aircraft today. So this is what we need to show. This is where the cameras need to be. And I work with a team on that. But I think what I have seen in the cockpit, I can take into the studio.
Hmm. Now, piggyback to that question, has flight instruction helped you in your aviation journalist or author background?
Very much so. Very early on, when I became an instructor, I earned a reputation as somebody who really likes the checklist. And because I insist on that, because I know you'll fail a check ride if you don't go for the checklist. The checklist is not a crutch, but it's there for a reason. It's a required piece of equipment.
Hmm.
So I have had my checklist have dropped out of my hand and slid under the rudder pedals when I was flying alone 150, my first solo cross country. Did an advanced yoga pose to pick it up. So I learned to keep my checklist on a lanyard and tied to my belt. So I taught my learners that. So that became kind of a thing in the journalism community. I had people coming up to me telling me, I'm doing that now. I said, all right, good job. And I have flown different airplanes. So people ask, I'd like your opinion on this airplane. We're thinking about getting one of these for my flight school. What is your opinion on that? And we've gone out and flown together.
Hmm.
Or I am wanting to do this with some of my learners. I'm not sure if it's right. Would you like to fly with me? Okay, so we'll do that. And again, it's the whole writing thing. I'll write about the experiences I've had and the experiences I picked up from other instructors as well.
Hmm. And you sort of answered this question already, but how did it help you transition into working with M0A and being the chief technical writer there?
That started when they were looking for someone to edit a book, and I have that experience because all these years of journalism, I've edited other things before.
Hmm.
And then they knew I had a background in broadcasting. So they asked me to write, I think it was the private pilot ground school at first. And at first I thought, I haven't written a script in like 10 years. So I worked on it a little bit and then it all came back. So the way I would do that, I just close my eyes and I can see Jason in the studio and I just start writing. And I've got my advisory circular, or not advisory circular, my airman certification standards with me to make sure we hit everything,
Hmm.
just like I am teaching a face-to-face ground school. And it seemed to just float from there. And when COVID hit, I went full time because of course the world shut down.
Sure.
And it was actually kind of funny because I was doing maybe 2, 3 scripts a week. And then I thought, I've got all this time on my hands right now. And the next thing you know, I'm turning in 5, 6 scripts a week. And we are suddenly much further ahead
Wow.
because I'm known for my speed with writing. And it was every job I've had in broadcasting or at the magazine is I was known for my speed. And it's not something I push, it's just one of my gifts.
Hmm.
I close my eyes and I write. But it's great if you're producing a project like this because it's like, well, what's the next chapter? We're going to learn about slow flight or we're going to learn about stalls. And it brings it home for people.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could give a new instructor one piece of advice for success in the profession, what would it be?
Use the syllabus, introduce it early. You need to have a copy of the syllabus that your learners have, and they need to have a copy of it. I do lots of, I would say, cleanup work. I have people who write to me at M0A and tell me about a challenge they're having with their instructor. And I'll ask, well, what syllabus are you using? And they don't know what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
That I think is a disservice to our learners because they need to know what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. I have had some clients who have had people, other instructors, and they said, no, we never used a syllabus. And they felt like maybe it made their flight training go on longer than it needed to, or they felt a little bit lost because you don't know what you don't know.
Hmm. So do you have any final thoughts or any projects you might be working on currently?
Well, currently I'm working on a course for flight instructors and also multi-engine instructors. So I think we're trying to teach the next generation how to be instructors. I have been approached by a couple of organizations to teach how to be instructors to the instructors. I have had new instructors hunt me down, so to speak. So I think that's my next niche is teaching the instructors to instruct.
Well, Meg, I really appreciate you joining us today. Your answers were amazing, and I think our public is really going to enjoy it.
Thank you.